Donald Trump has pledged to expand Obamacare into socialized medicine.
It's dead. It's going to, look, Obamacare is dead. It's going to be repealed. It's going to be replaced.
Obamacare is a disaster. Obamacare is going to be repealed and replaced with something so much better.
And unlike Donald Trump, I will never compromise away our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms.
So important is our Second Amendment. The politicians are chipping away at it day by day, night by night. It gets weaker and weaker. We're not going to let it happen. We are going to protect our Second Amendment. If I'm president, you can count on it 100%.
Donald Trump supports Planned Parenthood.
And absolutely they should be defunded. I thought, it was so cavalier and so horrible. I just thought it was incredible. So anyway, the answer is, in my opinion, they should absolutely be defunded.
Should American taxpayers pay $500 billion to that organization
No, I said
a year?
defund. I didn't say pay.
Yeah.
I said I have a lot of respect for some of the things. They do the cervical cancer on women. They do many, many good things. I know many women that
no
think it's
taxpayer
great.
money.
No, not while they do abortions. I made that clear.
Donald Trump pledges to be neutral between Israel and the Palestinians.
How important, though, is our alliance? They're our number one ally in the region, and that alliance has been, well, fractured in a big way.
Israel is so important. What Obama has done to Israel is a disgrace.
It's a disaster, and we have to protect Israel.
Donald Trump says he will keep in place the Iranian nuclear deal.
Never, ever, ever in my life have I seen any transaction so incompetently negotiated as our deal with Iran.
Donald Trump promises to compromise with Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer on Supreme Court nominees.
What criteria would you use to pick somebody?
Very conservative, very, very smart.
There were young people who were going to be here. Now, none of y'all have a degree from Trump University. Listen. It's easy to talk about making America great again. You can even print that on a baseball cap. But the question is, do you understand the principles that made America great in the first place?
Carson was suspending his campaign. That was false. The campaign put out flyers accusing people of voting violations. That was false. In South Carolina, a Cruz super PAC attacked Trump over the Confederate flag, and your then communications director posted a link this week accusing Rubio of disrespecting the Bible. That was false. Question, do you take personal responsibility? This was your campaign, except for the super PAC. Do you take personal responsibility for this series of incidents, and what does it say about the culture of the campaign you're running?
Chris, every accusation you raised there is incorrect. I appreciate your reading the Donald Trump attack file on that.
Oh, come on, sir.
Let me tell you, our campaign has been from the highest...
Wait a minute, sir.
Chris,
You personally apologized to Ben Carson on a debate stage. You fired your communications director.
Chris,
don't say that file on our part, sir.
Chris, please don't interrupt me. Our campaign from the beginning.
Please don't say that. Accuse me of something I didn't do.
Go ahead, Chris. Let me know when I'm allowed to answer.
Well, don't accuse me of doing something I didn't do. Two of those things, you apologized for one, and you fired your communications director. Don't say this is the Oppo file.
Chris, our campaign from the beginning has been the highest level of integrity. When others have engaged in personal attacks and insults, we don't respond in kind.
I want to talk about your thoughts on Ted Cruz.
He's self-absorbed. He's got this giant ego, and he's overly ambitious. He entered the Senate as a Canadian citizen.
The man who has 50 years of dirty tricks behind him. He's a man for whom a term was coined for copulating with a rodent. Well, let me be clear. Donald Trump may be a rat, but I have no desire to copulate with him.
Ted Cruz was my roommate. I did not like him at all in college.
And, I want to be clear because, Ted Cruz is a nightmare of a human being. I have plenty of problems with his politics. but truthfully, his personality is so awful that 99% of why I hate him is just his personality. If he agreed with me on every issue, I would hate him only 1% less.
The real Ted Cruz is supported by the Bush family. Did you know any of this? Did you know that Neil Bush, the son of President H.W. Bush, who defrauded U.S. taxpayers out of $1.5 billion in the SNL scam, and later lobbied for the Chinese government, has formally endorsed Senator Ted Cruz for president? This is a real one. Now, what does that matter? Anyone can endorse anybody. Well, there's much more to it than that. The connections between Ted Cruz and the Bush family are very deep. Ted Cruz was George W.'s brain when he ran for president. Did you know that? Did you know that Ted Cruz? Did you know that Ted Cruz was George W.'s brain when he ran for president? How could you not know this? How could you buy this cover story about Constitution? Constitution. Ted Cruz wrote the Constitution. He's the only one who knows what it is. Ted was a top policy advisor for George W. Bush. He was trying to get a job as Solicitor General, but settled for a job in the Federal Trade Commission. Ted Cruz is a Bushman with deep ties to the political and financial establishment. Ted and his wife Heidi brag about being the first Bush marriage. You see, they met as Bush staffers. Did you know that? Mr. Independent, Mr. Constitution. Did you know they met while working for George Bush? You don't know any of this. You don't know how many people who support him worked in the government and now claim they're anti-government. How could you people be so gullible? Heidi Cruz became a top deputy to U.S. Trade Rep Robert Zoellick, who used Heidi's membership in the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, and her job at GS Goldman Sachs. And the bailed-out bank then loaned Cruz $1 million secretly to finance a Senate race. Ted Cruz then borrowed an undisclosed $1 million loan from Citicorp. The fact of the matter is, Cruz is not who he appears to be. He is not an outsider. He is an insider. He is a Bush insider. He is the ultimate insider. He's a former top Bush 41 policy aide and globalist. He is an Ivy Leaguer. He's an establishment insider because he is a puppet of the Republican establishment itself. That is why he is attacking Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is attached to no one. In plain English, did you understand what I said to you?
Donald does well with voters who have relatively low information, who are not that engaged and who are angry, and they see him as an angry voice.
Oh, you're full of it, you fool.
Where we're beating him is when voters get more engaged and they get more informed. When they inform themselves, they realize his record. He's what they're angry at. He is the corruption, and if you want someone to stand up to Washington, the only one who hadn't doing so in this race is me.
Ted Cruz is a phony through and through. I'm not going to sit on the fence about him anymore. I would not support him. And I'll tell you something else. I'll say it to you right now. If Ted Cruz wins, I'm not voting for him. He's part of the establishment. He is part of the government itself. He's tied right into everything he claims he opposes. Read about it. What, I'm not making this up? What do you want me to do, make up stories for you about how wonderful he is and he's a true constitutionalist? None of it is true. He is a member of the Bush cabal, period.